As you know, in recent weeks, O'Toole has hired the former vice president of Huawei Canada and has quietly removed the Ban Huawei petition from the Conservative Party page. I'm worried about the direction the party is going. We'll see in his speech tomorrow how he wants to present himself to the country. Really, this is his last chance, in my opinion, before the campaign begins. And if you scroll through the party's official convention page, you'll start to see what Erin O'Toole's version of the Conservative Party looks like. Here's on screen a list of the official speakers of the conference. You'll notice, obviously, Jason Kenney is not on there, but neither is Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre, of course, was demoted, and the Conservatives said, no, we're putting him in an even better position. Really? He has no position on the speaker's roster. That's odd. He had an amazing week. Remember just the other day when the Kielburger brothers were summoned to Parliament? Take a look at this exchange between Pierre Poilievre and the Kielburgers.
What was the role exactly of Mr. Chen, senior advisor to the Prime Minister, in setting up this program?
I don't think he had any role in it.
Mr. Is that the answer for both of you?
Yes, that's correct. Who are you referring to, sir? Can you repeat this, please?
Ben Chen.
There is no role.
Craig, no role?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then why did you send him a message on LinkedIn on June 27th saying, "Hello, Ben. Thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig."
Sure. So I sent 100 messages because I only had 8 people on LinkedIn before that. And so that day, 100 messages went out. My EA sent them to people to join on LinkedIn, and he was one of them.
Yes.
I actually didn't, but
sorry,
my EA did.
Craig, this is your message. It's signed by you. And if I could be clear, it doesn't just say, "I wish you well." It says, Ben, excuse me, "Thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig." You sent that. Did you not?
I don't dispute that was sent.
But sorry, you got yourself in a lot of trouble here. You've just said a moment ago you thought that the Prime Minister's senior advisor, Mr. Chen, had no role in the establishment of the program, but I have correspondence where you thanked him for helping shape that very program.
It's rare that a political committee meeting is that riveting, that gripping, just for sheer entertainment and wow factor, let alone for actually achieving Conservative goals. Pierre Poilievre is a star, which is maybe why he was left off the roster. Well, look who's on the roster. As you can see, one of the speakers is named Walid Solomon. He's not an MP. Who's he? Well, he works for one of the largest law firms in the world. He was best known as Patrick Brown's best friend and ally in his disastrous pro-carbon tax leadership of the provincial Conservative Party. Walid Solomon has also been accused of being soft on Islamism. He's denied that and sued anyone who said that about him, including other Conservatives. Having Walid Solomon on the platform of speakers and banning the likes of Jason Kenney and Pierre Poilievre says a lot about the direction of Erin O'Toole. If you click on related events on the website, the first thing that comes up is another scary indicator. Again, these aren't official party events, but these are events that the party is promoting on their website, advertising to people to join. And you can see it's by a group called Clean Prosperity. What's that? Well, you can probably guess. That's a global warming activist group. I don't know how they got on this list. I assume they paid money to Erin O'Toole. And of course, Erin O'Toole is proud to be associated with them, unlike, say, Rebel News, Pierre Poilievre, or Derek Sloan. I find it deeply troubling, these little indicators. We'll see in the speech tomorrow night. I'm not prejudging it, but recent events tells me I should have a low expectation. Tomorrow's speech is at 5:15 p.m. I imagine there'll be a little preamble video, a prepared, produced video that shows the great successes of Erin O'Toole's 6 months as party leader. Well, if that were the case, it would be quite a short video. This is when he needs a bump. Parties often have a bump in the polls from their conventions because the conventions give them a chance to showcase themselves on their own terms, and the media often covers them. I doubt that's going to happen here. There's not a lot to show, and most of the proceedings are not going to be made available to the public. In fact, there's a frequently asked questions section of the page that says, will any of these sessions be available online for viewing? And the party explicitly says, no, they will not. It's almost like it's a secret convention. I presume the party's leadership speech tomorrow night will be made public, but I don't expect there to be a bump in the polls. In fact, if you look at that CBC poll aggregator that we've looked at before, and again, I don't trust the CBC as far as I can throw them, but all they've done here is simply aggregate all the polls. So they're just putting it all together in one place, and they're extrapolating from that based on region and province how many seats they expect each party to get. You can see there's a bit of a bandwidth there, but they predict that the Conservatives will lose 12 seats if Erin O'Toole stays on course. And they say that the likelihood of a Liberal Party majority is 46%. The likelihood of a Liberal Party minority again is another 44%. That's a 90% chance of a Liberal victory, only a 10% chance of a Conservative victory, and that would only be a minority. So what happens if, let's think a few months into the future, what happens if those poll predictors come true? If Walid Solomon, the mastermind behind Patrick Brown's success in Ontario, becomes the mastermind of the same disaster for Erin O'Toole? What happens if he, in fact, rolls the party back and gives Justin Trudeau a majority win? Well, some might say Erin O'Toole simply didn't have enough time. He'll want to hold on and get a second chance and run for the party again. I can understand there would be some fatigue in the party from having leadership races. There was just one 6 months ago. But if Erin O'Toole can't even muster party support now in his, quote, honeymoon phase, how is he going to do it later? Would Pierre Poilievre throw his hat into the ring? And by that I mean, would he challenge Erin O'Toole's leadership if Erin O'Toole loses the seats he's expected to do? I'm not an expert in the Conservative Party constitution, but I expect one of the reasons O'Toole's having his conference now is so that there's no legally required leadership mandate for quite a while. Again, I'm not an expert in the rules. Pierre Poilievre briefly threw his hat into the ring, at least in an exploratory sense, in the last leadership race before suddenly dropping out. I was very sad that he did. I thought he was excellent. Perhaps something was brought to an attention, some opposition research designed to embarrass him, perhaps some personal scandal. I simply don't know. But I was sad that he dropped out, and I hope he reconsiders. But what if he doesn't? Or what if he does and the party just can't win? Peter MacKay, who came in second in the last leadership race, was no winner either, I believe. Is the Conservative Party doomed to an eternity in opposition? Could Justin Trudeau do what his father Pierre Trudeau did and govern pretty much for 16 years? That was Pierre Trudeau from 1968 to 1984, for only a brief break in there for Joe Clark. What should Conservatives do? Who has the policy smarts? Who has the true Conservative beliefs that would unite the party, both fiscal Conservatives and social Conservatives, populists and downtown Toronto fancy pants? Who can do that? Who's strong enough to stare down the media when they're just giving him a rough time? Definitely Erin O'Toole is not. Who has the name recognition to instantly take a jump in the polls, and whose personal temperament, whose personality is a fit for these troubled times? I know a guy. His name is Stephen Harper. He was the most successful Conservative leader in a generation. He put back together a fractious Conservative movement that had split amongst the Conservative Party and the Reform Party. He wasn't beloved by journalists, but he was respected by them. In this era of wasteful spending, his penny-pinching approach and his economist's pedigree would serve him and our country well. And more to the point, he's a winner He didn't win his last election, but by then I think people were fatigued, and the media and the perfect storm of the campaign gave it to Trudeau, but just barely. Well, now it's Trudeau's perfect storm of incompetence, debt, and high unemployment. I say, bring back Harper. Let him put things together again. Is he really enjoying himself being a consultant? Unlike Brian Mulroney, Stephen Harper doesn't crave status and pedigree. Unlike Brian Mulroney, Stephen Harper doesn't crave money. I think he's enjoying talking to Israel's leaders and India's leaders and people he finds genuinely interesting. But I've got to think that whenever he turns on the TV and sees Trudeau muck it up again, or see Trudeau being the lightweight at the G7 or the G20, that a part of Stephen Harper thinks, I should be there, not that chump. So I say, let Erin O'Toole give his speech tomorrow, and Sheila and I will give you our true and honest reaction. And I say, let Erin O'Toole run in the next election. It's too late to change it. But if he does what everyone thinks he'll do, blow it, I think the answer isn't to give him yet another try, or even just to ask the party to go through yet another leadership with candidates of no account. I think the answer is to draft Stephen Harper. He's still young enough. He's still engaged enough. He's still smart enough. And I think maybe he's the only guy who can bring the Conservative Party's confidence back. You know, we had a petition for Stephen Harper a few years back. I don't know if you remember. When he retired, we put up a petition to name the Calgary International Airport Harper International Airport. The story got a little bit of buzz, but it didn't happen. Did you really think Justin Trudeau was going to give him that? Well, let's stop talking about airports and let's actually petition the man himself. You know, I've known Stephen Harper for quite a while, and I know one thing about him. He's thought about government and governing as a Conservative his whole life. I don't believe his true purpose is to be a lobbyist or a consultant or a jet setter for its own sake. I believe his purpose is to give Conservative leadership to Canada. And I believe that his whole family would support him, especially now that his kids are grown up and he can focus all his attentions on the job at hand. If you agree with me that Stephen Harper should start wrapping up his career and think about coming back to serve the country, obviously that's a personal decision for him to make, but he's a man with a public spirit. If you think he should decide to come back, then I ask you to go to bringbackharper.com and sign the petition. I want to get thousands of Conservatives to sign the petition, and we will deliver that petition to Stephen Harper and tell him, boss, you're not done yet. You got one more mission to save this country. If you agree with me, go to bringbackharper.com and sign our petition. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.